Hello, friends, and welcome to the show. This episode, I'm going to start off by a little then and now of the treatment received by Kayleigh McEnany and the treatment expected to be received by Jen Psaki. So let's get started with a clip from a press briefing involving Kayleigh McEnany and CNN's Jim Acosta.
Attempt to justify the misleading headlines that are regularly on your network. Like I was just walking in, watching CNN as they lauded the quote rallies in the streets.
Are you saying that the president
gotta let me finish,
this
Jim. This isn't a cable news segment. I'm answering your question right now from the
So
White
he
House
says,
podium.
okay.
When I walk
And he
out
still
of here,
interrupts her.
when I walk out here,
Still interrupting
Jim,
her.
when I walk out here, Jim, and I see on your
Still interrupting her.
network celebratory headlines about.
And he interrupts her multiple times after that. He interrupted her multiple times before that. It is bananas the way Kayleigh McEnany was treated, and it was celebrated by people at CNN. And it's insane that they celebrated that kind of behavior. It was just so combative and unproductive. And they wondered why. They were like, oh, why did Kayleigh McEnany talk to us that way? Well, maybe because you don't let her finish a sentence, right? Let the lady finish a sentence. And then if you want to go on the attack again, go on the attack again. But she says, please let me finish my sentence. I'm in the middle of talking. I'm speaking from the White House podium. And he says, okay. And then as she continues to answer his question from that point, he continues to interrupt her. Why do you expect for somebody to just sit there and take it a day in and day out? And while that guy is being celebrated as what? Words can't even describe the hypocrisy, the utter hypocrisy CNN is displaying here. So, Daily Mail reports White House press office is asking reporters for questions in advance of Jen Psaki's briefings, despite promising transparency to disgust of journalists. A report Monday evening revealed White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki tries to find out and field questions from reporters before press briefings. Revelation sparked a debate among White House journalists, some claiming it's improper and others maintaining it's normal among political press teams. The White House did not deny Tuesday to DailyMail.com that the press secretary does try to get questions in advance of press briefings and events. To everyone asking why this matters, if Psaki doesn't like your questions, she doesn't call on you. Politico reporter Tara Palmieri posted on Twitter. Other reporters explained that press teams in past administrations would do the same thing, spanning back at least to Bill Clinton. I don't know if Kayleigh McEnany ever did that because I believe that would have been a 24/7 news cycle for weeks and weeks and weeks, and I don't recall ever hearing that. So I assume that probably hadn't occurred. But so I'm going to basically kind of sharpshoot from my little peek here and basically say she should ask for topics, right? So it's really hard to prepare when there's so many things going on in the world, right? So I'd understand if she were to ask for topics. So say she requests for networks, right? So these press credentials are given to networks, and then networks give the press credentials to the reporters, who then go on to the press briefings. So basically, if she were to go, hey, networks, please let me know which topics you would like to cover today during our press briefings. Unless there is something change, like breaking news today, and then of course we'll talk about that. But unless something crazy happens today, let's kind of stick to a general topic, as in whatever topic you want to choose as a network. So if CNN says we wish to discuss Gavin Newsom and California, right? So they can ask questions about Gavin Newsom's recall election, if Joe Biden's going to support him, if the recall effort is successful. So basically, Jen Psaki can answer that in a couple ways. She could say Joe Biden is the lead of the Democratic Party, or is the leader of the Democratic Party, being the president of the United States, and he supports any Democratic nominees running for governor of their respective states. That would be one answer. Or she could say, Gavin Newsom did a poor job in California. He did such a poor job in California. In fact, he's being recalled, so he would support another Democratic candidate running California who could potentially do a better job. So it's hard to say, but she would know what to prepare for. She would know which questions questions to ask Joe Biden or other officials in the cabinet in the White House, so she can be well prepared for the White House. But she wouldn't be asked specific questions, because if you're being asked specific questions, if she's being fielded questions such as, what's a question that reporters could ask? What's the status of the Hunter Biden investigation, or are the charges against Hunter Biden going to be dropped? If she's asked that question point blank, either A, she's not going to answer it, or B, she can create some political spin narrative on that. She can, coordinate with that with political speechwriters in the office, and basically just have a little mini speech prepared and just answer it that way, as opposed to having something a little more natural, a more honest answer. So I think having themes is important. Basically having basically like an area of operations for each network for each day, and it can change every day. So each network says, okay, today we want to focus, our news stories, our 24-hour news cycles today is going to focus on the Middle East. So today I'm going to be talking about here in a couple minutes how there's bipartisan agreement that we should extend troop presence in Afghanistan and the implications that might arise from that. So now if CNN or Fox News wants to talk about that, they will send a request to Jen Psaki, basically saying, hey, we wish to talk about the bipartisan support of troop presence remaining in Afghanistan, and please prepare for questions for that. And I feel that is a reasonable request. That is not unreasonable. That isn't unethical. But it is unethical when Jen Psaki is saying, I want to know your exact questions, and if I don't like your question, I'm just not going to call on you. So there is a difference between the two things. Jumping over to Michael Tracy on Twitter, don't you find it odd that virtually none of the media accounts around the story bothered to note that there were never any insurrectionists in the House office buildings? Seems like an important detail. Rep. Nancy Mace, AOC made clear she didn't know who was at her door. Breathless attempts by media to fan fictitious news flames are dangerous. My office is 2 doors down. Insurrectionists never stormed our hallway. Egregious doesn't even begin to cover it. Is there nothing the mainstream media won't politicize? AOC said that rioters actually entered her office, forcing her to take refuge inside her bathroom after her legislative director, Geraldo Bonilla Chavez, told her to hide, run, and hide. That was from Newsweek. Also from Newsweek, as members of the mob banged against the door, AOC believed this was the moment where I thought everything was over. Ben Smith tweets a lot of quietly deleted tweets today over the detail in AOC's story that she thought she was hiding from the mob, but it turned out to be Capitol Police. She told it as she experienced it. Haley Bird Wilt, the Today Show, appears to have deleted its tweet with a video of their segment about this. So they're deleting their history because she lied, and it turns out that she lied. And all these news organizations, all these entertainment outlets are complicit in that lie. They didn't fact check her on it. And it's probably pretty easy to fact check whether or not there was insurrectionists in her hallway. If insurrectionists broke into her office and she had to go hide into the bathroom, but it turns out that it was a Capitol Police officer who she said was scary and agitated and had a weird look in his eye. I would probably have a weird look in my eye too if I had to go hunt down a congresswoman who ignored an evacuation order. It's like a fireman having to go run into a building because somebody ignored the fire alarm, and a fireman had to go run into a building, go find that person, and risk his life in the fire and go rescue that person. But instead of a fire, you're dealing with thousands of insurrectionists, using the terms that they want to use, using the words in these articles, thousands of rioters could potentially rip them apart limb by limb in a very unpleasant way. I would be agitated too. And she wonders why the guy looked at her angrily. It's because I can't believe I am here because you're too stupid to follow basic evacuation orders to get to safety. Now there's a possibility that we will both die, right? So if she would have gotten to safety, there's a very good possibility that they both will live. But her ignoring that, there is a very good possibility if, rioters entered her office or insurrectionists were in the hallway, there would be a very good possibility that they would both be beaten to death. So there is a big difference and it's very important. You got to understand why this guy would be upset. And for her to play the victim is so disgusting. People need to call her out on that, because that guy has every right to be agitated. Every right to be agitated. Because if it wasn't for that stupid congresswoman who ignored evacuation orders, he wouldn't have to have put his life on the line to go rescue her. If she would have done what she was supposed to do, then they would both have been safe at that point in time. But instead, there was a possibility that they would both be killed by rioters. So then to complain after the fact that he seemed agitated, of course he's going to be agitated. Don't. And that's why soft people shouldn't be politicians. She is too soft to be a politician. For her to get the SADS because somebody looked at her mean, yeah, grow up. Of course he's going to be upset. Of course he's going to be angry. Of course he's going to be agitated. Of course his adrenaline is going to be spiking. There is a very real possibility that he can be killed. There's a very real possibility that his principal, which would be her at that point in time, could be killed. So guess what? He is going to be agitated. He's going to be cranked up to 11 and just hyper vigilant at that point, because he has to be. Because at that point in time, it's life or death. And it's only that way because of her actions, her inactions. And then she has the audacity to say that he was mean, or that she was the victim and he made her feel uncomfortable. Just what a piece of garbage. Bipartisan report urges postponing planned U.S. troop exit from Afghanistan to shore up peace process. Leaving too soon could trigger civil war, hand the Taliban victory, and spur the reemergence of terror groups that could threaten the U.S., says the report. So basically, they're saying that there's an agreement for the U.S. to withdraw the remaining 2,500 service members in Afghanistan in May, but they wish to postpone that because of the peace talks that were supposed to happen between the Taliban and the Afghani leadership hadn't occurred for the past 6 months due to COVID-19. So they wish to extend that deadline by 6 months. But I don't believe that they really comprehend the fact that they created a contract or an agreement with the Taliban, which won't be beneficial to the safety of the troops in Afghanistan if they kind of renege on that, right? So if you pull out on that agreement, what do you think is going to happen? What do you think the Taliban is going to do if you say, just kidding, guys, we're going to have to stay a little longer? Because I believe even in this article, it even says that the Taliban threatens to increase violence against the United States if they don't pull out in time. The Taliban said they have abided by the terms of the agreements, and they made good on the promises of the United States not to target U.S. forces or stage attacks on Afghan cities. That's not really true. Peace talks have gotten off to a slow start in recent months, but Taliban representatives have threatened to return to an all-out war footing and abandon the peace process if Americans and NATO led forces do not withdraw by May. So, man, Trump gave Biden a hot potato to play with, and it's going to figure out if it's going to blow up in his face, right? So what's happening here is Trump promised to pull America out of the war. He created a situation in which would force Biden's hand to either double down on the war, because guess what? If Biden says we're going to stay in Afghanistan, he's going to have to literally double down on the war. He's going to have to probably double our troop presence there, because if the Taliban basically goes for an all-out war footing like they threatened to do, we're going to have to increase our troop presence, because you can't have 2,500 troops just basically being assaulted every day. They just can't handle it. It's just not enough members to deal with constant attacks by the Taliban. So Biden would literally probably have to double down troop presence, or he can agree and pull troops out of Afghanistan, much to the approval of American citizens who are tired of these endless wars. It's been 20 years. People are being deployed who weren't even alive during 9/11. It's getting ridiculous, and people are getting sick and tired of not knowing if their family member, their friends who have been constantly deploying over the course of 20 years whether or not they're going to come back alive. Because guess what? The percentage rate of people who die overall of service members, yeah, that is extremely low, but there's always a chance, right? And also, it's not just the actually dying. You have your PTSD, you have your injuries, your invisible wounds, your visible wounds. You have all these other complications that arise while being in combat situations, being deployed, being exposed to burn pits, being exposed to the environment, being exposed to the stress nonstop for. When I was deployed for a year, other, I believe, deployments are shorter now. So things, it's definitely, there's a lot of needless things that people are being exposed to if you don't have to be going to war. And if there's no standard to meet to basically have won the war, then what are we doing there? Right? That's what I think. If there's no goal to reach, if there is no, okay, this is considered success. So, World War II success would be the defeat of Hitler's army. North or the Korean War, we need to retake the 38th parallel. And so that was like the measure of success, right? We won the war if we managed to retake the 38th parallel in Korea. And that was the success. That was a successful war. But we don't have really a measure, because you really can't kill an ideology. You can't kill, the ideology that creates groups like the Taliban and Al Qaeda and stuff like that. You can do as much as you want. You can do as much intelligence as you want, as many drone strikes as you want, but you're not gonna destroy an idea. It's impossible. And if you don't have a measurement, again, if you don't have a, standard of which, this is a win, then we shouldn't be there, because we'll always be there if that's the case, because we'll never have won, because there is no way of winning. All right, so the AP is reporting Wisconsin prosecutors seek Rittenhouse arrest and higher bond. But before I get there, why don't you go in and smash the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, share the video, and if you'd like to contribute to the show, please go to notcensoredyet.com/donate. There's links available where you can contribute to the show. Every little bit helps, and it'll help us grow, produce consistent quality content free from outside influence. So, Madison, Wisconsin. Prosecutors asked Judge Wednesday for a new arrest warrant for Illinois teen charged with shooting 3 people, killing 2 of them during a protest over police brutality in Wisconsin after he apparently violated his bail conditions. Kyle Rittenhouse failed to inform the court of his change of address within 48 hours of moving. Kenosha County prosecutors alleged in a motion filed with Judge Bruce Schroeder. The motion asked Schroeder to issue an arrest warrant and increase Rittenhouse's bail by $200,000. Really, the kid is a teenager. So I'm pretty sure that one of the double standards on this whole bond thing or bail, this whole cashless bail, bail is too expensive and it keeps people needlessly in jail. They're doing exactly what they say that bail shouldn't be used for, right? They're using bail as a club to beat somebody over the head to try to keep them in jail. Rittenhouse's attorney, Mark Richards, countered in his own motion Wednesday that the death threats have driven Rittenhouse into an undisclosed safe house. Richards said he offered to give prosecutors the new address in November if they would keep it secret, but they refused. He said Rittenhouse has stayed in constant contact with him. Rittenhouse is charged with multiple counts, including homicide, in connection with the protest in August in Kenosha. The demonstrations began after a white police officer shot Jacob Blake, who is black, in the back during a domestic disturbance, leaving him paralyzed from the waist down. Prosecutors allege Rittenhouse, who was 17 at the time, responded to a malicious call on social media to protect Kenosha businesses from protesters. He opened fire with an assault-style rifle on Joseph Rosenbaum, Anthony Huber, and Gage Groskowitz. Rosenbaum and Huber were killed. Groskowitz was wounded but survived. Rittenhouse, who is white, fled to his home. And why does that matter? And I'm pretty sure I can figure out he's white because that was one of the whitest looking kids I have ever seen. Fled to his home in Antioch, Illinois, but turned himself into police there the next day. He has maintained he acted in self-defense after 3 men attacked him. Conservatives have rallied around him as a symbol for gun rights and pushing back against anti-police protesters, although others insist he escalated tensions by walking around the protest with a gun. So Sorry, no. If you're beating somebody's head in with a skateboard and he shoots, so again, the kid. Okay, this is going to be pretty controversial. And so when I originally started this podcast, it was actually be a conversational type thing. It was going to be like a very like JRE esque. That's why you see the curtain and the lights and the couch. It was going to be two people sit on the couch having a conversation. And the first one I did was 5 hours long. We got trashed, did a lot of talking, and I was actually talking about this. And I said this 17-year-old kid showed better trigger control and better shot placements than infantry soldiers that I had to teach to shoot while I was at the 101st. I wasn't infantry. I was basically, I wasn't even combat support. I was like forces support. I was like the support of the support, right? So, but I was still a rifle instructor because I could shoot. I could teach people how to shoot with these optics that, they were just given the stuff. They weren't taught how to use it. So I would teach these troops how to shoot. And this kid showed amazing trigger discipline. This kid showed amazing, just restraint. He shot only when he needed to shoot. He stopped shooting when he had to stop shooting. He fired a warning shot, and these people still were being aggressive. And then, as his head was being beaten with a skateboard, and then he shot the guy three or four times, and killed the individual. But he stopped shooting, right? So if you're gonna make this argument that this kid was crazy and he was out to kill people, well, he's not really a white supremacist because everybody he killed was white. But then on top of that, you have the notion that he's just some crazy killer. He went out to kill. No, if he went out there with a magazine with 30 rounds and he didn't shoot off 30 rounds, he was like, my life was in danger. I eliminated the threat and was running away, and these people were chasing after me and attacking me. And they kept attacking me. And the next person who knocked me to the ground and started wailing on me, I had to shoot that person too because I didn't know if I was going to be killed. And they can't make the excuse, well, why did he shoot him? You knew I was capable of killing somebody because I had already killed the last person who tried beating my head in. So don't use that excuse. Don't. Again, an armed society is a polite society, right? So the guy trying to bash his head in with a skateboard, don't get upset that you got shot because you were trying to beat somebody with a rifle with a skateboard. Sorry, the gun's gonna win in that. Especially that kid managed to land the shots, right? While after having ran, being knocked to the ground, being hit in the head, having a whole group of people, and the kid stopped shooting. That's the thing. This is going to be real hard for the prosecutor to convict him on this because the kid showed restraint. The kid didn't just open fire into a crowd like some nut job. The kid only shot who was a threat to him. The kid shot, what is it? Didn't someone pull a knife or a gun out on him and he shot him in the arm? And after shot him in the arm, the guy, withdrew and he stopped shooting him. And then he got up and he ran away again. So again, the kid is not a killer. The kid defended himself. It's definitely going to be an interesting legal argument to follow what's going on that. But to say that the kid is a cold-blooded killer is disingenuous at best because of the restraint that was shown. If he was a cold-blooded killer, that kid would have unloaded a magazine into people. He would have unloaded a magazine into the crowd. Basically, he would have started shooting and he wouldn't have stopped, right? If he was just out for blood, or if he was, if he didn't care about the safety of other people and he was just there to be aggressive and to shoot things, he would have had his excuse to start shooting. And then he would have said, I panicked and I couldn't stop shooting, because there is what is trigger hypnosis, or there's a condition. Basically, you start shooting and you just can't stop, and it's hard to stop shooting once you find yourself in a position where when you have to shoot, and it's hard to have that restraint. It's so easy just to keep squeezing that trigger, so easy just to keep riding that trigger, keep going and keep shooting, and it's just so easy to let it keep going. But he didn't do that. He just eliminated his threat and tried to retreat. He kept retreating. He kept being attacked, and he kept eliminating the greatest threat to his life. So it's going to be real interesting to see. Again, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. And I don't think especially with him being his life being threatened, and if he has to move, it's if he has to move for his safety because people are out to get him, you can't really blame him for not disclosing his location, especially if the court is making his location public. Then they need to seal the records because they're basically saying, "Hey, we're trying to let you know where he's at, but you're not accepting that. You want that information to be made public, but we can't make it public because it's affecting his safety. Can't have it both ways." Last month, Rittenhouse was seen drinking at a bar in Mount Pleasant, Wisconsin, and posing for photos with two men as they made OK signs with their hands, a symbol used by white supremacists and Joe Biden and Jen Psaki, according to prosecutors. I added the Joe Biden and Jen Psaki because there's photos of them doing that. 5 Men at the bar also serenaded Rittenhouse with a song that has become the anthem of neo-fascist group the Proud Boys, prosecutors alleged. Rittenhouse is now 18, but still too young to drink. However, he could consume alcohol in a bar under Wisconsin law because he was with his mother. The judge ordered him not to have any contact with white supremacists after that episode. So again, I'm going to say this. How are you going to say that the Proud Boys is a white supremacist group? Their leader is an Afro-Cuban, right? It's really hard to say you're a white supremacist group when your leader is a black man. It's a really bad white supremacist group. It's kind of antithetical to the whole white supremacist thing, especially when the leader is not white. It's kind of undercuts the whole white supremacy thing. Prosecutors wrote in their motion Wednesday that they learned Rittenhouse was no longer living at his Antioch address after the court mailed him a notice and it was returned as undeliverable on January 28th. Kenosha detectives traveled to the address on Tuesday and discovered another man had rented the apartment and had been living there since mid-December. The prosecutor said in their motion that it's unusual for any homicide defendant to be allowed to roam freely and the court needs to know where Rittenhouse is at all times. They did not say whether they knew where Rittenhouse currently resides, saying only that he has failed to provide the court with a new address. He posted no money, so he has no financial stake in the bond. He is already facing the most serious possible criminal charges and life in prison. So in comparison, potential future criminal penalties are insignificant. I'd like to see them actually try to give him life in prison. The videos before the shooting is basically him saying, "Hey, I'm a EMT. I'm here to give medical aid. I'm not here to shoot people." There's a thing of him trying to put out a fire, I believe, and that's where everything kind of kicked off. He was trying to put out a fire next to a gas station, and the protesters did not like that. And by protesters, I mean rioters. Richards, Rittenhouse's attorney, argued in his motion that Rittenhouse and his family received threats in various forms, the most recent of which came on January 25th. When Rittenhouse was released from jail in November, police told defense attorneys not to provide the safe house address, Richards said. Oh, so the police told them not to provide the address. So what's the deal with the courts then? If the police told him not to, that's just bananas. An attorney working with Richards, Corey Christopher, I can't pronounce that, asked Assistant District Attorney Thomas Binger via email on November 30th if he could keep the safe house address sealed, but Binger refused, according to Richards' motion. It is noteworthy that the state has only now decided to file a motion to increase bond in this case, despite having corresponded with attorney, I can't pronounce that last name, Carafisi, regarding the change in Kyle's residence over 2 months ago, Richards wrote. Richards stressed that Rittenhouse made all his court appearances and is in constant contact with him. He provided the safe house address to the judge as part of a separate motion requesting it to be sealed. So look, if the kid's life is in safety because you have people wanting to kill him or do him harm, then the attorney, the prosecutor can't say, well, this needs to be public record. No, because the kid's not going to be safe in jail. The kid's not going to be safe on the outside if you just keep releasing his address. The kid's going to have to keep moving. And if you're going to keep attacking him for having moved, then he's kind of stuck in a catch-22. You're making this kid out to be some evil villain, and he was 17 years old. He's now 18 years old. If you're going to use, so that, and I'm old enough to remember, wasn't there a gentleman that was just put to death recently that he was 18, 17, 18, 19 years old, and he burned a car with these youth pastors in it. And basically they said he was too young to know the consequences of his actions. So wouldn't that same standard apply to this case? But of course not, right? Of course not, because that's not pushing the correct narrative. So again, I just want one standard. What's going on? So my standard is the kid showed amazing trigger control. The kid showed amazing restraint. Believe it or not, he showed restraint. Even though he killed 2 people and shot a third, he showed enough restraint to not open fire into a crowd. And so that's the difference between just a crazy person and somebody who's literally just fighting for their life, rationally fighting for their life, while tactically retreating. So the prosecutor is going to have a real hard time convincing people that that kid is some cold-blooded killer when there's videos of that kid running away and then people tripping him and then just people coming from every which way and trying to hit him. And then basically whenever somebody comes at him with a weapon, he then shoots the person with that weapon and then retreats again. And then the kid can also make the argument of saying, I shot somebody, like I shot one person. Why are they still attacking me? And you attack and you pretend to be the victim? You know that I'm capable of shooting somebody and yet you still attack me. And then you pretend to be the victim when I shoot you, but I don't kill you. You can't be the victim in that case. Sorry, you know the consequences of your action. Again, the whole armed society is the polite society thing. You can't pretend to be the victim when you're beating somebody over the head with a skateboard and they decide to shoot you. That's the consequences of your actions. If I'm walking down the street and somebody hits me over the head with a skateboard and I break their neck, that's the consequence of their action is their neck gets broken, right? If I just pile drive them into the ground, that's the consequences of their actions. So the consequences of these people's actions were to chase after and start assaulting somebody who has a loaded rifle and expect to not get shot, right? So there's multiple defenses that could be had here. And the one that I would really push would just be the trigger control, right? The kid's finger wasn't on the trigger until it had to be. The kid only shot when he had to shoot. The kid didn't shoot any more than he had to shoot. And the kid did everything he could to get away. And the people that he did kill went after him, right? He didn't chase and he didn't hunt down people to shoot. People hunted him down and he was forced to shoot them. So there's a difference. There's a difference between a killer and then somebody who kills because it's either kill or be killed. So don't again, I'm going to be real interested to see how this plays out. Time will tell. I feel like this is going to be something that's going to basically just ruin this kid's life, at least in the short term. I wonder if he's going to be able to pull the whole the Huntington kids thing and basically get millions of dollars, because all these organizations were basically trying to call him a white supremacist, a Nazi, a fascist when the story first broke out. So I wonder if he's going to be able to sue and get millions of dollars and basically just ride that gravy train, because he's going to be basically nuclear for the rest of his life. So I guess time will tell on that. So I'm going to drop a couple more videos today. And until next time, I'll see you, friends. Have a good one. Bye.